If you thought that 2024 was eventful and complicated, you need to brace yourselves for this year, 2025, because the astrological events are going to be major and more eventful than what we have seen for the past year. Happy New Year, everyone! So, yeah, it's 2025. I'm actually filming this exactly on January 1. So, two things. I'm sorry if you're hearing in the background someone singing kasi actually I'm filming this January 1 as I mentioned. So, simula kaninang umaga may nagkakaraoke na sa kapitbahay namin, palit-palit sila, and I was waiting for them to stop but they're not stopping. So, I figured, might as well just record and hopefully kahit may naririnig kayong kumakanta, naiintindihan niyo pa rin ako. And number two, I'm sorry for the bad lighting because I am filming this in the evening. So I only have my artificial light here. I don't have natural lighting. So I hope you can bear with it. And babawi na lang ako on the next video. Because you know what's more important than me looking good is you guys knowing what 2025 is going to bring for us, astrologically speaking. That's more important. So might as well just film this now para hindi siya late malabas. And also, another thing, nasira yung clip ng mic ko. So, I'm sorry if I'm gonna be holding it very awkwardly like this. I hope you guys don't mind. Para lang mas marinig ninyo ako ng clear. But anyway, enough about those things. This is my first video for 2025. And of course, I want to talk about the 2025 astrological transits and generally, in mundane astrology, how it's going to affect us as well so that you guys have a guide on what to expect for the upcoming year or this year na pala siya, not upcoming year. Preamble, 2025 and even 2026, no, the next year is probably going to be a very major year for us in our society and our human experiences and also of course by default pati na rin sa experiences natin personally. There's going to be, a lot of shifts, a lot of changes in the stars and how it's going to affect us as well. So 2025, the way that I can summarize it is a year of massive changes and shifts that will affect us societally speaking, but also, of course, personally in our lives. So, in this video, I'm not necessarily going to deep dive into how each of the transits are going to affect us, but instead tell you guys a larger picture, a summary of the most na major pa, the major astrological events of 2025 so that you can be guided. Of course, this is a general guide. It will still depend on your charts, how this is going to affect you. So I still highly encourage you guys to get a transits reading, be it with me or with another astrologer, kasi the things that I will be discussing in this video is more on the mundane astrology of it all or how it's going to affect us as a whole generally speaking. But you know what? If you don't want to have a reading, this can still be a good guide for you on what you can potentially expect generally in the society so that you have an idea what's going to happen around you instead of what's going to happen for you or to you. So it's still going to be helpful for them. But anyway, this video is going to be divided, of course, based on the different transits. I'll try my best to do it chronologically, but I'll probably also do it in a way that it makes sense of how the certain transits are going to affect one another. Hopefully, it will make sense for you guys as we go on as well. There will be timestamps below if maiinip kayo of me talking around different transits, and if there is a certain transit that you're more interested in knowing, you can click the description, see the timestamps below, click it, and just see the transits that you want to review instead. As I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of shifts, a lot of changes that is going to happen for us. So let's start first on what is really the transits that is going to set the pace of 2025. And it is Mars retrograde. So if you guys are not aware, Mars is currently in retrograde in the sign of Leo. Mars has been retrograding in the sign of Leo since December 6th of 2024. And this year, 2025, on January 6th, dahil it's in retrograde, it appears like it's moving backwards. It's gonna go back and re-enter in the sign of Cancer. That's why for everyone, Mars is the planet of action, movement, aggression, conflict. What's really the feeling or the energy of the start of the year is it's frustrating and to most of us, medyo nakakatamad. It feels like we want to do something, but we don't have that push to sort of do something. That's why it's going to be really frustrating for most of us. So, as I mentioned, this is an ongoing transit since late 2024, but we're actually going to experience this up until February 24 and also even experience the consequences of it up until June of 2025. I'm sorry if I said 2024, 2025, because that is the month wherein Mars is going to move out of the sign of Cancer and Leo properly. So I actually have a dedicated video about this already. You can click somewhere here to watch the video, you know, what you can expect generally and also based on your rising sign in case you haven't watched it. But this transit holds an importance for 2025 because, as I mentioned, it's going to be happening in the majority of the first quarter. From January 6 to February 24, it's going to be stationing retrograde in the sign of Cancer. But also, there is another reason why it's important. There are actually two things. Number one, Mars retrograde is not a yearly thing. Mars stations retrograde every 26 months or so. So this is a very important rare event. And sometimes when a transit does not happen every year, it's more important for us or mas eventful siya or it holds more significance, especially in a societal sense. At the same time, the second reason is this will sort of set the tone of how 2024 ended and how 2025 is going to start. Because as I mentioned, this is going to go on up until June of 2025. Mararamdaman natin siya. And of course, Mars is not an easy planet. I have no way of sugarcoating this. Mars is the planet of action, movement, aggression, conflicts, accidents. In 2025, it will stay mostly in Cancer, as I mentioned. And Cancer is a very water-centric energy. Of course, it's a water sign. But at the same time, it is very domestic. Cancer rules our home or our private spaces, our spaces that we hold dearly in our hearts. So what we can really expect during this Mars retrograde at the start of the year is, you know, battles, conflicts, accidents, incidents related to domestic stuff. So sometimes this can be things related to a certain country that is very domesticated for them, or maybe even water centric stuff. Sometimes this can talk about, you know, wars and battles, or sometimes you can talk about battles in water or problems in trade. So that is mostly what we're going to see at the start of 2025, generally speaking. Another one is a lot of frustration coming energetically from a lot of people because, as I mentioned, Mars, when it's in retrograde, it's like, you know, you don't have the energy to do something, you don't have the push to do something, so it's really frustrating. So personally, that's what we're going to feel. You know, think about it. Na it's the start of the year. You're supposed to do things. You're supposed to be hopeful. You're supposed to start going to the gym, but then suddenly you don't have the energy to do it. So it's gonna be a little bit frustrating as well. Another thing about this transit is actually its opposition with the sign of Pluto. So it will oppose Pluto on April 3, 2025, if I'm not mistaken, and also sorry, I think it's April 27. I think it's January 3 and then April 27 of 2025. It's going to oppose Pluto. It actually already opposed Pluto last year, pero this year there's going to be two oppositions as well. So this is hard because Mars, as I mentioned, alam kong paulit-ulit, but it's action, aggression, and conflict. Meanwhile, Pluto is, you know, transformation, power, influence. So this is like power struggle between massive energy, societally speaking. So it's really frustrating because, you know, Pluto is in Aquarius right now, transforming certain societal aspects in Aquarian themes. But there will be some things that are going to be, you know, in conflict with these transformations na it will delay these transformations on happening. It is going to be frustrating for a lot of us, societally speaking. So we can expect a lot of power struggles between people in power. So of course, politics is going to be heavily involved in this one, especially since, you know, given the history of everything naman din talaga, Mars in retrograde often indicates battles and wars. I have no way of sugarcoating this, or accidents that are really going to shake certain nations. In my Mars retrograde video, I indicated some countries there that are going to be affected a lot by this Mars retrograde. A lot of countries in East Asia or in Asia overall are going to be affected, particularly Korea. And unfortunately, we have seen certain accidents and certain incidents as well in Korea since December, and also actually in the start of the year, if I'm not mistaken, or like December din talaga. So yeah, it's not really a good start of the year. But yeah, that is Mars retrograde. As I mentioned, I do have a dedicated video already about this. So let's move on to the second transit of the year, which is arguably the most important thing that we need to know. And that is the shift of the nodes. Last half of 2023 up until 2024, the North Node and the South Node were in the axes of Libra and also Aries. That's why, last year, if natatandaan niyo pa, if you guys remember or if you guys know, the eclipses happened in the sign of Aries and also Libra during April and October, if I remember it correctly. So this year, North Node and the South Node, the energetic points are going to be moving in the sign of Virgo and also Pisces, indicating that that is where we are going to experience the eclipses. So the eclipses are going to happen, majority of it in Virgo and Pisces this year. So the nodes are going to be staying up until August 2026 in the sign of Virgo and Pisces. So it's not just 2025 that we're going to see the eclipses happening there. It's also going to stretch up until the half of 2026. But of course, what's really relevant is how we're going to experience it firsthand. So we can expect a lot of endings and beginnings in matters related to Virgo and Pisces, which is, if you guys are not yet aware, Virgo in mundane astrology or general astrology often indicates the working class, the tradesmen, the salespeople, the people who, do labor for us. Virgo, in some sense, also has to do with details in justice. So it's not necessarily justice or government per se, pero yung documents, the agreements, the writings, the details of what is being done behind closed doors can sometimes indicate Virgo. Virgo sometimes also represents, innocence of certain people, because Virgo is the virgin, with regards to the representation of the constellation. So sometimes it could also indicate things related to kids or things that just started in a sense. Now, Pisces naman also rules a lot of things, related to ocean, to seas, larger aquatic places in a sense. Pisces also often indicates, entertainment, not in a way that the glamour of entertainment. It's mostly the illusion that entertainment gives to us, and also it shows or represents spirituality, religion, connectedness of people. So sometimes it can also be related to immigration or people moving from countries to countries or connecting of different cultures as well. So it's like an open-handed energy in a sense. So think of it na Pisces is like the larger picture, Virgo is more of the details. Para siyang ganon. So there are going to be a total of 4 eclipses happening this year. So let's talk about them one by one. So the first eclipse of the year is going to happen on March 14. This is going to be Philippine time, and it's going to be a lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo. So if you guys are not familiar, lunar eclipses are massive endings to the point that you may experience or you may feel this massive ending a month before it even happens, or it will happen for you gradually after 6 months pa. So rarely does it happen on the same day as the eclipse happens as well. So this is a very important one because, as I mentioned, this is, the time we're in. The first eclipse is going to happen. So medyo pasilip siya of like how this Virgo Pisces experience is going to be for us, even though we had a previous eclipse already, the sign of Pisces in 2024. But of course, for 2025, this is the first one that we're going to experience. Also, what is really annoying or challenging for this eclipse is there's going to be a lot of things happening in March aside from this eclipse. If you guys have already had transits reading with me, you know already na nakakapagod yung March. Yeah, we're going to have a Venus retrograde. We're going to have a Mercury retrograde as well in March. So I'm going to show the chart of that day on March 14 here. But yeah, we're going to have a Venus retrograde starting on March 2 to March 27, which often indicates rethinking or reanalyzing of certain relationships. And in mundane astrology, so the astrology of the whole world, this can sometimes indicate, loss of harmony or people not really understanding one another. So sometimes this can talk about cultural indifferences or like ethnicities needing to go around trying to fight something for themselves again over and over again. And at the same time, in our relationships, this can also be a little bit hard because Venus is the planet of relationships, of love, of harmony. And sometimes when it's in retrograde, relationships don't work the way that they're supposed to work. And at the same time, on March 15, a day after the eclipse, Mercury is also going to station retrograde. Syempre, hindi siya magpapahuli. And you all know that Mercury retrogrades are very inconvenient, very petty. Actually, the Mercury retrograde is going to be going from March 15 to March 30 in the sign of Aries, but it will re-enter Pisces around, let me just check my cheat sheet. It will enter Pisces from March 30 up until April 7. Same thing with Venus, no? It will station retrograde from March 2 to 27 in the sign of Aries, but it will go back in the sign of Pisces from March 27 hanggang April 30. That's why, going back to the lunar eclipse, this lunar eclipse is going to be a little bit chaotic because there are two retrogrades happening in the same day. So this is an ending that will most probably cause a lot of inconvenience or people not understanding your intentions, or in a mundane way, it's people not really seeing eye to eye on what is supposed to end in matters related to Virgo. And as I mentioned, Virgo can sometimes talk about labor, work, salesmen, tradesmen, people who really work hard for the world in a sense. And at the same time, this eclipse will oppose Saturn in the sign of Pisces. And Saturn is the planet of restrictions, boundaries, discipline, maturity. So people are really going to feel restricted on whatever it is that needs to be done or needs to be ending in this particular cycle. So of course, as I mentioned, this is going to be different in our personal lives. Look for where Virgo is in your whole sign house chart for you to have an idea. So the second eclipse of this year is going to happen on March 29. Again, this is Philippine time. And it's going to be a partial solar eclipse in the sign of Aries. So this is what we call an out of sign eclipse because, as I mentioned, wala na doon sa axis ni Aries and also Libra, the north node and the south node. So it's technically a continuation of the lessons of the beginnings and endings that we have experienced in the sign of Aries and Libra. This is going to conjunct Mercury retrograde in the sign of Aries. So of course, this is going to be really, really challenging, even more challenging than the March 14 eclipse. At the same time, Mars is just going to be starting stationing direct in the sign of Cancer around this time. And I know Mars retrograde is challenging, pero most of the time, if you're gonna look at the cycles of Mars retrograde, mas may effect yung weeks or months even after the Mars retrograde happens once it goes direct. So this can cause a lot of new beginnings that can spur out from misunderstandings, inconveniences, which can be a little bit challenging because at the same time, Chiron is also in the sign of Aries too. So there will be some wounds, some past traumas or past issues that are going to be coming out of this new beginning as well. Of course, for us personally, it's going to be a little bit different compared to our chart, but in a mundane astrology type of thing, it's going to be a little bit challenging. Expect some possibilities of conflicts, of wars. I know, kanina ko pa sinasabi yung word na yun, but this year is very Martian. There's a lot of activation in Mars and in Aries, which is a sign naturally ruled by Mars. So yeah, it's going to be challenging. There's no way to sugarcoat it. And then after the March eclipses, the second round of eclipses are going to happen in the month of September. So this is also another eventful month for us, same as March. So the first eclipse on September, or the third eclipse of the year, is going to happen in September 7 to 8. So again, Philippine time, madaling araw kasi siya mangyayari. We are going to have a lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces. So as I mentioned, lunar eclipses are massive endings that, again, you may feel a month before or may happen to you 6 months right after pa. But for us, collectively, there's going to be an ending related to Piscean matters of entertainment, spirituality, religion, overall illusions of matters that we are seeing as a society is also a possibility of it. It will oppose Mercury in the sign of Virgo, the opposite sign of it. So my possibility that we're very active in speaking, in ideas, in traveling, or connecting with one another, which can also play a part on this ending that is going to happen for us. Saturn is also going to be in retrograde in the sign of Pisces around this time. So, yes, it's going to feel a little bit restrictive but then, particularly in matters related to spirituality and religion. But it's supposed to end something related to those matters as well. And lastly, the last eclipse of the year is going to happen on September 22. Again, this is Philippine time. And the last eclipse is going to be happening in the sign of Virgo. So if you remember, March, we had a lunar eclipse there, pero at the end of the year, the second half of the year, it's going to be a solar eclipse. So, kabaliktaran naman. What we have ended in March, we need to end it because on September, the second half of the year, we have an opportunity to have new beginnings related to the sign of Virgo. So again, this is a massive new beginning that for us, we may feel it or we may see the effects of it 1 month or 2 months before, or it may happen 6 to 8 months right after. Pa. Typically, solar eclipses energies are a little bit more powerful than lunar eclipses. That is why. But arguably, what I can say about this eclipse is this is probably the most harmonious eclipse of the year. The three ones can be a little bit challenging, but this one, it will be in the same sign as Mercury and also Venus. And Venus puts in harmony in there. I know Venus is not necessarily really good in the sign of Virgo. Well, we're going to look at the details too much, no, of whatever is going to be starting in Virgo related matters, related to labor, details of justice, stuff like that. But still is going to be a little bit more harmonious compared to the past eclipses. So I'm going to be preparing, a more in-depth videos about each of these eclipses as times go by in 2025, but this is just a summary of what we can expect for these eclipses this year. Now, after that, what I want to talk about is probably the best transit in 2025, and that is Jupiter entering the sign of Cancer, where it is exalted. So, what's really frustrating about 2024 is Jupiter is in the sign of Gemini, where it's not really comfortable. But in 2025, it will be entering Cancer. So, Jupiter is going to enter Cancer from June 10 of 2025, and it will stay there up until June 30 of 2026. So, it's like a year. And as I mentioned, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, meaning it's very uplifted, it's really strong, it's really positive. And Jupiter is the planet of expansion, growth, wisdom, abundance. So this is really going to be very positive for us. Personally, you need to look at where Cancer is located in your whole sign house chart para magkaroon kayo ng idea how the expansion is going to feel like for you. But societally speaking, in mundane astrology, there's going to be a lot of expansion on matters related to Cancer matters. So this can be, again, stuff related to water, but at the same time, it can be like the enclosed spaces that we have. So sometimes this can be home, family, domestic stuff as well is going to be highlighted during this time. So expect certain expansion in different countries. Again, I'm going to prepare a more in-depth video about this and how it's going to generally affect us before the transit happens in June. But yeah, this is generally a very positive transit. And hopefully with, the possibilities of conflicts and wars happening in 2025, kahit pa paano makompensate on the safety, the expansion of enclosed domesticated spaces for us with this particular transit too. After that, for the following months, there's going to be a lot of movements as well in the sign of Aries. So planets that are going to be moving in the sign of Aries is going to be Neptune and Saturn. You're gonna see that on 2025, medyo magsasayawan sila and they're going to be following one another. As soon as one planet enters Aries, susunod din yung isa. As soon as the other planet stations retrograde, susunod din yung isa. So that's the pattern that you're going to see between these two planets. So first, let's talk about Saturn entering Aries. So this is going to happen in May 25 up until September 1. It's going to be staying in the sign of Aries for 2025. But it will station retrograde around September 1 up until February 14 of 2026. Wherein it's going to enter or re-enter the sign of Pisces. And then from February 14 of 2026 hanggang April 13 of 2028, it's gonna stay for good in the sign of Pisces. So yeah, as I mentioned, Saturn is restrictions, barriers, discipline, maturity, delayed gratification. Meanwhile, Aries is individualism. It's naturally ruled by Mars, so sometimes it can talk about liberation, rebellion. It can talk about people trying to stand up for something and wanting to experience freedom, experience things for the first time. So there's going to be an energy of those things feeling like it's restricted or our individualism is being questioned or being jailed, let's just say. But at the same time, what's really good about this is we may see or we may witness people standing up for other people. So, yes, again, hindi ko na siya sugarcoat. There are possibilities of incidents, of battles, of conflicts. But with these conflicts, we will see the rise of certain individuals who we will see as a beacon of hope, as a beacon of liberation, as an ideal person who can lead us into something that is less restrictive or more mature for our nations, generally speaking. And at the same time, Neptune as well is also going to enter the sign of Aries right after Saturn. Sorry, going back. It's Neptune actually who will go first before the Saturn, sorry. So on March 30 to October 22 of 2025, Neptune is going to enter the sign of Aries. And then on October 22, it will station back also, since it's in retrograde, in a sign of Pisces. So this is going to be a big shift because Neptune is an outer planet. Most of the time when an outer planet moves, so that's Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, it affects our society most of the time. And of course, since we are creatures of society, by default, may affect din siya sa atin. Again, this is a big shift. Neptune is the planet of illusions, delusions, dreams, collective ideations of people. And as I mentioned, Aries is, liberation, war, action, individuality. So there is an essence of idealizing individualism. Even though we're working hard, to unify people, there is still going to be an essence coming from Neptune and Saturn together, wherein we want to move ourselves and liberate ourselves and experience individuality, but we may feel restriction around it because of Saturn also being in the same sign as Neptune. Kasi they're very different. Neptune is illusion, delusion, stream. Saturn naman is practicality, reality, boundaries, restrictions. There's going to be some series of Saturn and Neptune conjunctions all throughout the year of 2025 as well. Right now, medyo nagsasayawan naman na sila actually, but exact conjunctions are going to happen this year in 2025. Saturn and Neptune together, if you're gonna look at astrological books, hindi sila magandang combination because as I mentioned, they're sort of opposing one another. So there's going to be possibilities of the unknown being unknown. Neptune is illusion, Saturn is reality. So in the past times when Saturn and Neptune are also transiting or aspecting one another, there are certain instances of secrets being known or documents being outed wherein certain agencies have used, you know, materials or substances to take control of other people, which is very Saturn and Neptune combined. There's going to be this essence from 2025 to 2027. You're going to see this, of knowing the presence of others, things that we're not sure what they are. Kaya nakikita nyo na ngayon, there's rise of UFOs, of drones. Where are they coming? I know it sounds weird. I know it sounds conspiracy theorist, pero we're gonna see this more, especially during the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune. Another thing is the rise of AI and surveillance of AI because, Neptune sometimes indicates our escape from reality. And ever since internet or AI has been brought upon in this world, it has been a form of escape for a lot of people. Meanwhile, Saturn is control, it's boundaries. So there's going to be some conflicts of AI and how it's going to be used, generally speaking, to sort of become a surveillance for people. So you're also going to see this a lot from 2025 to 2027. There's also, I'm not going to go deeper into it. I will discuss this more probably around March once Neptune enters Aries. But in this particular video, I just want to say that Neptune and Saturn transits or aspects often indicates relevance in Russian history. So we're also going possibly, going to see that too. And lastly, in some astrological practices, Saturn and Neptune together can sometimes indicate as well diseases or plagues. So there's not a lot of historical things that I have seen that really indicates it, except for the Spanish flu. But who knows, maybe it will also potentially happen in 2025. But I don't think it's in the same level as the Spanish flu or the pandemic that we experienced in 2020. Pero baka magkaroon ng like replay or us knowing the unknown. So my mic is not working anymore. So I will be recording using my phone's mic. So sorry agad in advance if there will be some background sounds that you'll be hearing that I won't be able to filter. I'll try my best during editing. But yeah, my mic got cut off while I was talking about what we can expect for the conjunction. So as I mentioned, some astrological practices see the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune related to, plagues, pandemics. As I mentioned, I don't see it in the same level as like the 2020 pandemic, but I do think there's going to be some revelations or the unknown being known related to the pandemic that we experienced. So maybe there's going to be revelations or documents coming out letting us know what really happened around that time, or what it is that we're really supposed to know on the events that happened before. So there's a possibility of that instead. Now, another transit worth mentioning in 2025 is Uranus entering Gemini. So Uranus is going to enter Gemini on July 7 up until November 8 of 2025 Philippine time. So in case you didn't know, it's been staying in the sign of Taurus for the past 8 years, if I'm not mistaken. That's why there is a lot more, shocking events or unexpected changes happening in Taurian matters. Because if hindi nyo pa alam, Uranus is the planet of unexpected events, unexpected changes, individuality, disruptions. And Gemini, air sign, often rules education, information, communication, and also the way that people talk and also connect with one another. It also sometimes is related to travel and transportation. So we can expect a lot of disruptive events happening there. This can be a combination of good and bad because Uranus sometimes can be good, but at the same time, because of the disruptive energy or the disruptive thing that it often gives us, syempre challenging din siya. Because as humans, we try to wire our brains to expect the unexpected, but still we're sometimes caught off guard. As I mentioned, there will be disruption in communication. This can be also related to internet or the way that we connect with one another. So there may be some changes or developments, innovations, or possible like inventions related to communication or how we are communicating with one another. Given also that Pluto is in Aquarius, they will go hand in hand, wherein we're going to see innovations in technology. And at the same time, there may be some disruptions happening in educational systems around the world. So, syempre, this will vary depending on the charts of each countries, but we can really expect a lot of changes, a lot of unexpected events happening in educational systems of different countries and how we also learn about certain things as well. This can also indicate that, again, since Pluto is in Aquarius, they go hand in hand. They're both in air signs right now. There is certain breakthroughs as well in the things that we know. If I remember correctly, one of the times wherein Uranus was in Gemini, there were a lot of life-changing inventions and a lot of books, information, documents that went out that also shaped what we're trying to learn as a society. So one example is one of the times when Uranus is in Gemini, Charles Darwin came out with The Origin of the Species. Ewan ko sa inyo if you know that book, but it's one of my favorite books ever. It's one of the books that really shaped what we know about evolution, what we know about human species, kumbaga, as a whole. So hopefully there is something positively disruptive like that. And then as I mentioned, Gemini also sometimes has to do with, travel, trade. So there's also a possibility of new inventions or innovations around the way that we travel. So this goes hand in hand with, sea traveling, land travel, but also particularly in air traveling. So expect some things, unexpected disruptions, unexpected events happening around aviation too. Or again, sometimes related to trade. So baka magkaroon, of another big trading company or sales company that we're going to see that is also going to be based on technology or innovations around technology too. I'm gonna go more in-depth about this once Uranus enters Gemini talaga as the months go by in 2025. But Uranus in Gemini, Uranus entering Gemini is often a very important transit in the US history, in the US chart. It often indicates wars and serious conflicts, so Cold Wars, Civil Wars, stuff like that. And United States is a very important country in the world, whether we admit it or not. Especially also here in the Philippines, they have a very big control over us. So we can expect certain things. I don't think, it's gonna be like an all-out war with what we experienced before, but this can be like a civil war or like a certain misunderstanding or conflict around the government of the US that can also be very disruptive on some of the certain agreements or certain way that people are also going to learn about the history of United States of America. So again, I will go more in-depth into this in the following months of 2025. This is just a preview. And of course, alam naman nating lahat that Pluto also entered Aquarius. It's been going back and forth from Capricorn to Aquarius since 2023, but 2025 is the year where it is really gonna stay put in the sign of Aquarius and stay there for the next 20 years. And Pluto is, the ultimate generational planet, so it affects the society. We're starting, generation beta in 2025, so it also coincides with that. But of course, there's going to be transformations which Pluto represents related to our society that is very Aquarian in nature. Aquarius is an air sign. It's the sign that often shows innovation, thinking outside the box, or like studying the concepts of what we're known for, but then trying to see how we can make it better, or what we can evolve pa around this particular things that we know. So that's often what Aquarius rules. On May 4 to October 14, Pluto is going to station retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. So there is an opportunity to rethink, reanalyze, see what the transformations are happening around our society and how we can keep up with the changes as well, given around this time Uranus is also going to enter Gemini. So again, they go hand in hand. So yeah, that's it. That's the general astrology of 2025. I hope this helps you, guides you. As I mentioned, this is just the general astrology of it. It's not really going to help you in your personal lives. That's why if you want to book a reading with me, click the description below. Go to my Instagram account. Every Sunday, I post my schedules there. I do have a 2025 transits reading. But at the same time, I will also have ready to purchase a PDF copy of the transits too. This is just the general transits in a very friendly price. So if you guys are interested how this is going to affect you based on your rising signs, you can also click one of the links below, answer the form, and I will send you guys an email on how you can purchase the PDF copies of the transits as well. So that is the transits of 2025. I'm gonna be preparing series of other videos of these transits, more in-depth explanation into it. And I'm also going to prepare a monthly astrological events or videos of monthly astrological events too, para din may guidance kayo on what you can expect. But as I mentioned, 2025 is going to be really challenging, really eventful, but like anything in astrology, this too shall pass. I'm pretty sure you're gonna survive it. We guys survived 2020, so I'm pretty sure we're also going to survive 2025. So Happy New Year, everyone. And even though there's a lot of complications that are about to happen, embrace it. Work with it, not against it. Use this as your guide only. And I wish you guys all the best. I'll see you on the next video. Bye!